All right. I'm just wondering when all these Trump surrogates and campaign managers and quote-unquote political leaders are going to realize that they're backing a losing horse, and this horse is not going to respond to the tug on the reins. Now, Paul Manafort, which is the interview you're about to see with Chuck Todd, is going to spin like a big dog. He's going to spin like a top. And the bottom line is Trump does whatever Trump wants to do. Now, apparently, his kids can influence him somewhat because it's just been leaked that it wasn't actually Donald Trump that fired Corey Lewandowski. It was Eric Trump that actually did the firing, and Corey, being, I guess, a good soldier, basically spun it so that it didn't look bad for Trump, and then Trump picked up on it. But it got leaked out that it was Eric Trump that actually fired Lewandowski. Anyway, let's listen to Mr. Manafort and watch him make his case for Donald Trump doing the right thing as far as being a presidential candidate.
Welcome back. Time for a little pop news quiz. What do these three people, former National Security Advisor Brent Scowcroft, former Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson, and columnist George Will, have in common? They're all Republicans, and they all have rejected Donald Trump this week. Scowcroft and Paulson went as far as to endorse Hillary Clinton. And Will, one of the more influential voices of the Republican establishment for decades, said he's no longer a Republican and is advocating for Trump to lose. It's a reminder that while Trump is the presumptive Republican nominee, he is presumptive because he's not yet the nominee. There is still strong resistance within the party, and then anything can happen in Cleveland next month. In fact, as we saw last week with the Cavaliers, Cleveland is already full of a few surprises. So joining me now from Southampton, New York, is the chairman of the Trump campaign, the head coach, if you will, Paul Manafort. Mr. Manafort, welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you, Chuck.
Let me start with Brexit. What I want to know is whether Donald Trump believes what happened in the UK is in the best interests of the United States. He said it was good for the UK, and I understand that. But does he believe what happened is in the best interest of the United States?
Well, you have to understand what happened there. What happened with Brexit was people taking back control. I mean, again, the faceless bureaucrats in Brussels and Strasbourg who have ruled and told the Brits how to live, and making promises to them that their lives would get better, and talking about a future based on globalism versus family and the individual and local community. That's what Brexit was all about, and the reality is those are the same issues that have caused the angst in America today.
Okay, that is in fact true. The only problem is the people, the older people, not the younger ones, but the older people that voted for Brexit basically were voting for things to go back to the way they were before globalization. That is not going to happen. I don't care what they say, what they do, what promises the left has made to them, or the right. I don't care what. We are not backing down from globalization. So, and since they didn't realize that, they voted to get out of the EU, and mark my words, if they don't rescind that vote some kind of way, they are going to regret it. And the younger people who realized that they were on the wrong side of this, they are going to probably revolt. But he's right.
And this election in 2016, where Donald Trump is the only change agent, is set up perfectly on those same themes because Hillary Clinton is the epitome of the establishment. She's been in power for 25 years. And the issues, the promises of that globalism is the solution, the promise that government's going to make your life better if you just give up your freedoms, the promises that we know better than you on how to make your lives better, have been rejected. That's what Donald Trump has identified, That's what Brexit identified, and that's what's going to be the basis for the election in 2016.
I understand that, but you didn't get at the core part of the question I asked. Does he believe that what happened with Brexit and what it could lead to was in the best interest of the United States?
Obviously, people feeling that their government is responsive to them is in the best interest of the United States. It's in the best interest of the UK. It's in the best interest of countries all over the world. And as far as the ability of the United States to work with the UK, I was interested to hear Mr. Miliband. He's part of the establishment. He's the Hillary Clinton of Britain. He was just rejected in the results of the Brexit vote. So for him to say with total arrogance that we know better even though we lost than the people of Britain, that's exactly the arrogance that Donald Trump is talking about and that Hillary Clinton represents and is going to be the basis for the campaign this fall.
I want you to get you to react. The Clinton campaign is out this morning with a Brexit-related TV ad that hits Mr. Trump. Here it is, and I want to get you to react on the other side.
Every president is tested by world events, but Donald Trump thinks about how his golf resort can profit from them.
When the pound goes down, more people are coming to Turnberry.
In a volatile world, the last thing we need is a volatile president.
It obviously picks up on what was a head-scratching event earlier this week, Mr. Manafort, which is on the day of the biggest news event in the world. He is in the country at the heart of this, and he's promoting a golf course.
This is an example, again, of the tone deafness of the Clinton campaign. First of all, when you look at what was happening in the Clinton campaign over the last month, they have spent $60 million against Donald Trump on ads like this, talking about things that are totally distractive and unconnected to what's going on in the American political system. The American people care about what is going to happen to their lives, about change. And the issues of Brexit, this kind of phony ad doesn't address those things. And Hillary Clinton is ignoring the reality because she's part of the establishment. She can't get away from the fact that she is part of the problem that's being rejected. So when she tries to distract with commercials like this, she's once again showing that she is absolutely afraid of the consequences of what Brexit represented and what the Trump phenomenon in the primaries represented, which is historic numbers of people voting for change against the establishment.
All right. What I don't understand is you're in Scotland. Scotland voted over the top that they wanted to stay in the European Union. You give a press conference where all you do is talk about your new golf course and hotel. And then when reporters start asking you questions, you laud the fact that you were in support of the leave, which any moron who did any kind of research would know that's not what you want to say when you're in Scotland. And then on top of it, when the British pound crashes, which is going to hurt people in the United Kingdom, you're talking about how good your resort's going to do because of the reduction, in the value of the British pound. Newsflash, moron, if the British pound falls as far as its value is concerned, don't you think your resorts worldwide are going to suffer due to lack of the ability of the British tourists to spend money, in particular your resort in Florida and in Hawaii? So yeah, it's going to help that particular resort, but it's going to hurt you and hurt the Florida economy as far as their ability to generate monies from British tourism. Idiosa.
Why was it appropriate for Mr. Trump to be promoting a golf course on the day of, frankly, what could be the most impactful decision that a country has made that impacts, the global community in a way that we're not fully comprehending yet, and he's promoting a golf course in the middle of his campaign?
First of all, Mr. Trump is an international businessman. His success as an international...
No, he may have been an international businessman, but right now he is a nominee for President of the United States 24/7. So that he's an international businessman is bullshit. That should have been turned over to his kids a long time ago. But now it looks like there's a conflict of interest here as far as him dealing with situations that have to do with his personal finances and fortune. Bad answer.
A businessman and a person who gets things done is one of the attractions of his candidacy, so that when he says he's going to bring real change to the country, voters believe him. Unlike Mrs. Clinton, who has been saying that for 25 years, and in those 25 years, the only changes that have happened have made people's lives worse.
Donald Trump said something else yesterday during his tour of Scotland. He said that he hasn't begun his campaign. Well, the Clinton campaign has begun. What is the status of your campaign? I say this, obviously, Corey Lewandowski was fired earlier this week. I guess there's more command and control for you, but explain, is this campaign started yet or not?
See, and that's the other thing. Trump had a 5.5 week head start on Clinton. So I guess he took a 5.5, well, now it's got to be more than 6 week vacation from his campaign, since he hasn't started it yet. Whereas Clinton, basically within the past couple of weeks, let's call it, has really ramped up everything. So now she's, what, 2 weeks ahead of Trump, especially given the fact that Trump only has $1.3 million of cash in the bank, and Clinton has approximately $43 million worth of cash in the bank, and that doesn't even count her super PACs. And I believe Trump's super PAC has about $2 million in the bank. So yeah, she has now a 2 week head start on him as far as raising money, and he has yet to go to a battleground state, and Clinton is ramping up in all of the battleground states with, I believe the last count was $23 million in ad buys in those states. Yeah, he hasn't started his campaign, and I'm wondering when he's going to start it.
The Trump campaign.
First of all, Corey Lewandowski was a part of an historic victory, and Donald Trump recognized that. But the campaign has now transitioned to a new phase. We're now in the general election mode of the campaign. In that mode, last week, Mr. Trump laid out in his speech, prepared remarks, the stakes of the election, what he sees as what is at stake between Hillary Clinton and the establishment and his change agenda. Our campaign, frankly, is getting organized.
Okay, listen to what he said. His campaign is getting organized. What the hell have you guys been doing for the last 5.5 weeks? And now, just now you're getting organized?
It's all in words, I guess, but we are fully now integrated with the Republican National Committee. This week we'll be making some major announcements of people who are taking over in major positions in our national campaign, as well as in our state campaigns. We're organized in all 16 states that we're going to be targeting as battleground states. We'll be making those announcements this week. The campaign is a process, and a lot of what we've been doing over the last several weeks has not been in the public domain.
Do you acknowledge that you're behind?
I'm sorry?
Do you acknowledge that you're behind, both organizationally and in the polls?
No, I mean, because what you're trying to do is comparing an 800...
Okay, there's a spin. He can't even tell the truth. He's behind in the polls, he's behind in the money, he's behind in the organization, and he can't admit that they're behind. He just got through, said that, you know, they're trying to form an organization.
Organization in Brooklyn of Mrs. Clinton's with an integrated system of the RNC and the Republican and the Trump campaign, which doesn't appear on an FEC report. We have hundreds, we have actually thousands of people in the battleground states, political organizers who are now in place. We have state organizations that are in place. We have our campaign plans in place. We have our budgets in place. And we have, the good thing is we have a candidate who doesn't need to figure out what's going on in order to say what he wants to do.
If there are 70 people in this campaign, and there are 50 states, and he's got one person for sure for each state, that leaves another 20 basically, to spread out over the 50 states. So that's what? 1.4 people per state? Come on, give me a break. You know, just at least tell the truth.
So our campaign is organized. We're ready. We're going to have a good convention, and we're confident that that we are not behind the Clinton campaign. They're muscle bound. We're not.
Very quickly, Dr. James Dobson, a longtime evangelical leader, has said that very recently Donald Trump accepted a relationship with Christ and that he is now a baby Christian, that within the last few weeks he it became a born-again Christian. What can you tell me about that? And is that a fair way to describe it? Is he now an evangelical Christian? Is that the way to describe Donald Trump's faith?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak to Donald Trump and his embrace of religion. You talked to him about that. I will say, however, that the evangelical leaders that have been a part of the Christian movement in the United States came together last week and showed overwhelming support for Mr. Trump. And
that's not true. Very few of those leaders, when they came out of that meeting, were prepared to endorse Trump. They showed up at a meeting, they listened to his pitch, they left the meeting, but very few of them showed, as he would call it, overwhelming support, unless you count them applauding him when he came in and applauding him when he went out. So that's not true. He's spinning that one.
Frankly, in my 40 years in politics, I've never seen such a broad-based base of support within that community for one candidate. It has never been this united.
Is Dr. James Dobson right or wrong? Is Donald Trump recently converted to born-again Christianity?
Again, you have to talk to Mr. Trump about his embrace of Christianity. That's not for me to speak to. What I can speak to is that Christians across this country and the leadership of the Christian movement and the evangelical movement are broadly united for Mr. Trump and his campaign.
All right.
That's not true. So that's a spin. Do your own research. I believe that I think it's Jerry Falwell Jr. and a couple of the other major evangelical guys have done interviews where they have said that although, and I believe it was 30 people at this particular meeting, it was all the major guys, although they do feel more akin to Donald Trump and a willingness to support him, that they are not at this point, other than Falwell and I believe there were two other main guys, they are not willing to endorse him. So, but do your own research on that one. Now, I'm going to pull in the interview that was done on ABC with McConnell, and I just want you to see how much of a spin Republican politicians have to do in order to keep their conversations on even keel. And again, that's going to be Mitch McConnell. All right, here is Mitch McConnell with his sidestep, spin around, dance around on this week with George Stephanopoulos. And just pay attention to, I mean, there's no endorsement here, even though he has said that he is endorsing Trump. I mean, with endorsements like this, you know, who really needs enemies?
Let's get more on it now from Senator Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, author of the new book, also The Long Game, his political memoir. Senator McConnell, thank you for joining us this morning. You just heard those new poll numbers. 64% of Americans say they don't think that Donald Trump is qualified to be president. Do you believe he's qualified? And how do you convince all those voters to think he isn't?
Well, look, I think there's no question that he's made a number of mistakes over the last few weeks. I think they're beginning to right the ship. It's a long time until November, and the burden obviously will be on him to convince people that he can handle this job. And I think a good step in the right direction was the changes he made in the campaign. He's beginning to use a prepared script more often, which I think is absolutely appropriate for any candidate, whether you're a longtime politician like Hillary Clinton or whether you're new to the game like Donald Trump.
Notice he didn't answer the question whether he thinks that Donald Trump is either qualified or unqualified. Never answered it.
I didn't hear you say whether you thought he was qualified.
Look, that'll be up to the American people to decide. You know, he won the Republican nomination fair and square. He got more votes than anybody else against a whole lot of well-qualified candidates. And so our primary voters have made their decision as to who they want to be the nominee. The American people will be able to make that decision in the fall.
Okay. And he was asked a question a second time, and he still didn't answer the question.
You're glad he's working more from a prepared script. What about the response he had in Scotland to that Brexit vote? You saw the Hillary campaign taking aim at that. Do you agree with how he handled that, and what's your reaction to the vote?
Well, I'll tell you who really had a bad week was President Obama, because his 2012 campaign manager ran the Remain campaign in England. He had suggested the president come over and get right in the middle of that. Obviously, that had little or no impact. And I think what you saw in England, at least from what I read, is that people got tired of being dictated to by unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. And of course, we have a lot of that here in this country. A lot of the president's bureaucrats expanding regulations in a way that slow our economy and make it difficult for us to have growth, even though we didn't pass any legislation allowing them to do that. And a good example of that kind of overreach this very week, the Supreme Court rebuffed the president's immigration executive orders that he had previously said he didn't have the authority to issue.
All right, Mitch. So again, the question was, do you think that Donald Trump handled that situation over in Scotland properly? And obviously you didn't answer that question and pivoted the question over to your favorite Democrat, Barack Obama. Classic.
That was the right move for Britain?
Look, it's up to the British to make that decision. But you can read about the frustration of having ceded to the bureaucrats in Brussels so much authority. And you see the same thing here. You know, we've had a regulatory rampage over the last 6 years. A lot of the people that the president's put on all these boards and commissions and in his government are pursuing policies that we haven't passed in Congress. In fact, the Supreme Court just slapped him down on one of them this week. That's the way you get slow growth. And when you have slow growth, you have fewer opportunities for our people.
No, Mitch. The way you get slow growth is you and the Paul Ryan and his predecessor decide that you do not want to do anything as far as this country's infrastructure is concerned, even though you acknowledge that we need a tremendous amount of infrastructure upgrades, because you believe it would benefit President Obama. That is just one of the ways where you stymie growth that would be a natural growth.
Are you worried at all about what that vote means for the special relationship between the United States and Britain?
No, I think that's a pretty solid relationship. You know, we've always been very close with the British. The only other bilateral relationship in the world that's anywhere near this close would be our relationship with Israel.
You know, I want to go back to the poll. One of the other things the poll shows is that only 77% of Republicans are now supporting Donald Trump. That's a number you can't win if the number is that low. Your friend George Will, the conservative columnist, just announced over the weekend that he's now no longer a Republican. He's left the party. And one of your own senators, Mark Kirk, Republican from Illinois, is taking direct aim at Donald Trump. Let's take a look at that.
Mark Kirk bucked his party to say Donald Trump is not fit to be commander-in-chief. Mark Kirk, courageous and independent.
I'm Mark Kirk, and I approve this message.
How can Mr. Trump win if the party is this divided and you've got your own senators making ads like that?
Well, Mark Kirk is an independent senator, and that's why he got elected in Illinois and why he's going to be reelected this fall. What I would reassure my friend George Will of is that the Republican Party is still going to be America's conservative party. America needs two parties. We have a liberal party and a conservative party. If you look at the platform that will be written at our convention, we are not changing the basic principles that Republicans believe in. Our nominee may not agree with every single one of those, but the Republican Party, it will remain America's conservative party.
So are you saying things like, for example, you're not going to write the Muslim ban, the ban on Muslim immigration into the platform? You're not going to talk about mass deportations, as Mr. Trump has talked about. He said he doesn't want to touch Social Security and Medicare. Will you maintain the traditional Republican position on entitlement reform?
It's my expectation that the platform will be a traditional Republican platform, not all that different from the one we had 4 years ago.
I love it when these guys don't answer a question, so let me help you. Okay, yeah, they're going to go for entitlement reform. No, they're not going to go for a Muslim ban. Yes, Donald Trump is going to run on a Muslim ban. Yes, Donald Trump is going to go for expanded entitlements. So the GOP is going to have a platform that Donald Trump is going to be running against. That is going to be classic.
So it won't be Mr. Trump's platform?
It'll be the platform of the Republican Party, and I don't expect it to differ that much from the platform we had 4 years ago.
In your book, you also write, I think it's on page 177, that the three most important words in politics are cash on hand. You've learned that lesson over the course of your career running for the Senate. You always had a lot of cash in hand, a lot more than the 1.2 million that Donald Trump showed this week. The super PACs aligned with Hillary Clinton have about $120 million. The super PACs aligned with Donald Trump have about $2 million. Can he win with that kind of a money deficit?
No, but I hope he won't have that kind of money deficit come fall. There's a lot of work to be done to turn the campaign in a different direction, and one of those obvious flaws at the moment is cash on hand. He needs to catch up and catch up fast.
Is he going to need to write a check to his own campaign?
He needs to be able to compete financially where the money comes from, whether it comes out of his own pocket or from others. It doesn't really make all that much difference, but he's going to have way more than he has now in order to run the kind of campaign he needs to win.
Finally,
he finally answered a question where he said, no, Trump can't win with the kind of cash that he has on hand.
Saw some pretty extraordinary movements in the House and Senate this week on the issue of gun control. Still stalemate on the legislation, even though you had that 25-hour sit-in on the House, a 15-hour talkathon in the Senate. Right? Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, and one of your own senators, Senator Collins from Maine, Senator Susan Collins, has put a compromise bill on the floor where she says those who are on the no-fly list shouldn't be able to buy a gun. Why did you vote to table that compromise, even though it has the support not only of Republican and Democratic senators, but also many former retired military leaders?
Okay, this is going to be a good one. A bipartisan bill that's got enough support to beat that 60-vote filibuster, and McConnell knew it and tabled it so it couldn't even hit the floor.
Yeah, let me tell you what we agree on. We agree that terrorists shouldn't have weapons. We agree that if you're on those lists, you should not be immediately able to purchase a firearm. We all agree on that. The problem is we have a difference of opinion about permanent blocking of the ability to exercise a constitutional right. Whether people like it or not, there is a constitutional right in our country to own and possess a firearm.
But, Mr. McConnell, as you are supremely aware, no constitutional right is absolute, i.e. First Amendment freedom of speech. So you're using a false narrative here to try to make your point.
We had a disagreement as to the point, what burden of proof would be required to permanently ban somebody. We're very close to reaching an agreement on this. I hope we can. We had a lot of votes on it this week. I think this is an issue, obviously, we'll be revisiting again in the future.
So you think something will pass?
I'm sorry?
You think something will pass?
I don't know, but clearly we've got to move on. We have other business to do this week with regard to the Zika MilCon bill and the Puerto Rican bill that will prevent a bailout of Puerto Rico.
So basically what you're saying is you can't cross a street and chew gum at the same time. So you stop this bill from hitting the floor because it's a lot of people's feeling that Collins' compromise bill was going to be able to garner 60 votes to stop the filibuster and be able to pass. So you saw the handwriting on the wall and basically have tabled this bill inside the conference. Oh, these Republicans, you gotta love them. Can't wait for this election to occur, because if the handwriting is on the wall as much as it appears to be, this is going to be a change election, and you, my friend, are going to be out of a job.